Welcome to Spectrum News at 2. I am Rachel David White, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. Let's take a look at the headlines. Former Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu to be sentenced today over alleged organ harvesting. Rapes raise Buhari's extra budgetary spending to 23.7 trillion naira. Plus, Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin says troops to leave Bakhmut on May 10th over lack of ammunition. We'll bring you details of the story. Wide to steer clear of mining sites, saying they belong to the landowners. The Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Olamilekan Adebite, gave the warning in Ibadan during the inauguration of the International Gemstone Market under the Economic Sustainability Plan of the federal government entities and not traditional rulers. The minister added that the newly opened gemstone market will create and generate sustainable competitive advantages in key areas such as development of downstream gemstone and gold mining industries, increasing the level of employment in all business activities related to the gemstone mining cluster, among others. Meanwhile, the federal government has refunded 859.7 billion naira to various states' government as reimbursement for out-of-pocket expenditures incurred in constructing federal roads over 8 years. This was disclosed in a fact sheet out on federal roads. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, directed states to desist from such interventions as the federal government would not offset such expenses. Meanwhile, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, had said that henceforth, if any state takes on federal roads project without the In the meantime, the federal government has said that the cost of electricity consumption in Nigeria is among the cheapest and most defaulted by listed military formations, educational institutions, and state government among the defaulters of power bills. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Power, Abubakar Aliyu, who appeared before the Senate Committee on Power alongside the heads of various agencies in the power sector in Abuja, said electricity was highly subsidized in the country by the federal government, making it the cheapest across the globe. Away from that, the Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, Laulu Akande, has said that the administration of President Buhari has put Nigeria on the right trajectory. Akande, who however considered that there are few things the Buhari administration could have done better, noted that the administration has enough to show for the last 8 years. He noted that the country is lucky to have some party the VP had gotten over the years stood him out. In a separate development, Nigeria's former Deputy Senate, Ike Ekweremadu, Senate President rather, his wife and Dr. Obeta will be sentenced in Britain today for allegedly plotting to harvest a man's kidney for his sick daughter. In the first United Kingdom's case of its kind, 60 years old Ekweremadu was found guilty in March at London's Old Bailey Criminal Court of conspiring to transfer and traffic the young street trader into Britain for his body part. Also convicted were Ekweremadu's wife, Beatrice, 56, and Obina Obeta, 50, a doctor who acted as a middleman in the plot. Reports say that in Britain it is legal to donate a kidney, but not for financial or material reward. From the Green Chambers, the House 23.7 trillion naira. The approval by the House came after the Senate granted the presidential request, which reportedly generated outcry, especially from the private sector. The Joint House Committee on Finance, Banking and Currency and AIDS, Loans and Debts Management in plenary recommended that the House approve the requested additional 1 trillion naira ways and means advances for the implementation of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act as passed by the National Assembly and approved the securitization of the total outstanding ways and means amount under the following terms: 23.7 trillion naira tenor, 40 years moratorium on principal repayment, 3 years, as well as pricing and interest rate 9% per annum. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives should it be misuse or abuse public resources. The chairman of the House Committee on NDDC, Olubunmi Tunji Ojo, issued the warning in Abuja as the management of the commission defended its 2021, 2022 and 2023 budgetary proposals before the lawmakers. The managing director and chief executive officer NDDC, Samuel Obeko, had appeared before the committee to defend the budgetary of the committee, to scrutinize every detail of the proposals to ensure that they are making the best decisions for the organizations, the people of the Niger Delta region and its stakeholders. On judicial matters, the National Industrial Court sitting in Owerri has issued an interim order restraining the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC) or any interlocutory injunction filed in the suit. In the interim injunction signed by Justice Nelson Ogbonnaya, the court also restrained NLC and TUC or any of its affiliates from stopping, hindering, disrupting, or interfering with the provision of services and other work by their members in the civil and public service in Imo, pending the hearing. The judge, however, set the return date for the court proceedings and hearing of the matter till May 11, 2023. Meanwhile, the Federal High Court in Abuja has adjourned the trial of a former registrar of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, Dibu Ojerinde ICPC, to put its house in order following an oral application for an adjournment by ICPC counsel Ebenezer Shogunle. Recall that at the resumed hearing, Ojerinde's lawyer, Etaya Ogana, told the court that a motion had been filed challenging the rearrest of the former JAB boss and seeks the court order for his release. On Sudan crisis, the second patient, Abike Dabiri Erewa, made this known to newsmen while noting that Egypt officials had insisted that the airlines sent from Nigeria must be able to take the number of Nigerians available, otherwise they will not be allowed to evacuate anyone. Meanwhile, the Nigerian ambassador to Egypt, Nura Rumi, said that 95 Nigerian students from Borno State have been moved from was at the Akwin border of Khartoum, Sudan. On security, the military has warned against plans to sabotage the handover of power to the President-elect Bola Tinubu on May 29th. The High Command said the armed forces were on standby and would ensure a smooth transition process scheduled to take place in 23 days. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Musa Dan Madami, met the warning as a former military head of state, Yakubu Gowon, advised candidates challenging the outcomes of the last elections to accept the court verdict. Fettered vehicle number plate, as they are a security risk to the public. The core public education officer, Bisi Kazim, said this in an interview with newsmen in Abuja. Kazim said driving a vehicle with fetid number plates on the roads is a huge security risk for other road users because miscreants, kidnappers, terrorists, and other enemies of the state can leverage that gap to commit heinous crimes as their identity is masked. More life-touching projects. Governor Emmanuel yesterday led his Bauchi State counterpart, Senator Bala Mohammed, to inaugurate the Anwar Mbak Road in fulfillment of his promise to the people to focus his completion agenda on rural development. A correspondent completes the report.
In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful.
Bauchi State Governor Senator Bala Mohammed has inaugurated the 17.95 kilometers Anwar Mbak Road with spurs and 1.65 kilometers outfall drain in Uyo and Oran local government areas. Speaking during the event, Mohammed, who described Governor Emmanuel,
it was a long protocol. I am very, very exhilarated, Mr. Governor, to be here because I can see the connection, the attachment to excellence. I can see that the people of this community are positively touched by your Midas touch because you have delivered what they craved for many years. Governor Udom Emmanuel, I am not flattering him because he has nothing to give me other than friendship, which he has already given me. But he's one of the best Nigerians we have ever produced. Yes. You are still coming back. I have been watching you with keen interest. I believe you are one of those who should be a role.
Construction of road infrastructures in the state, especially in rural communities, was an appreciation of the people's support to his administration in the last 8 years. According to him, provision of rural roads will help to enhance the rural economy of the state. On the second phase of the road project, Governor Emmanuel assured that funds will be made available for the construction before he leaves office.
I made a commitment that during this second tenure, we will turn our eyes and look at the rural development. And we'll look at the economy that will try and make money available before we leave for that second phase, so that we won't leave burden for the incoming governor.
In their goodwill messages, Governor-elect of Akwa Ibom, Pastor Moino, Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Onyeka Mbasi, and his Uyo counterpart, Anete Eka, amongst others, all commended Governor Emmanuel for the quality of the road, noting that the road will ameliorate the sufferings of the people over the years. Reports say the road links several communities in Uyo and Oran local government areas. It also leads to the popular shared fish market in Oran. In Uyo, Jane Uwa, Spectrum Television News.
Now to Africa, where U.S. President Joe Biden has issued of the Sudanese people. He added that the violence in Sudan was an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. Still in Africa, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says his country is ready to assist Mozambique in the fight in countries Ghana, Kenya, and Egypt. He said Japan was interested in financing the fight against terrorism in northern Cabo Delgado province, which would allow Japanese companies that are part of the consortium exploiting natural gas in the Rovuma Basin to operate in a safe environment. Kishida and Mozambican government Felipe Nyusi will be holding a talk on the need for Japanese private investment in structural areas of the economy with a view to concrete result in bilateral cooperation. Nyusi urged the Japanese to explore investment opportunities in transport, agriculture, industry, and tourism. On the foreign scene, Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin has announced a statement on Telegram said that he is officially notifying the Chief of the General Staff, the Minister of Defense, the Supreme Commander-in-Chief and people of Russia of his intention. Reports say Prigozhin's forces have played a key role in Russian assault on Ukrainian territory, including Bakhmut. And still on a foreign scene, China's Foreign Minister Qin Gang has informed his Russian counterpart that Beijing would maintain communication and coordination with Moscow as efforts is made to reach a political settlement to the Ukraine conflict. Gang said China is willing to maintain communication and coordination with Russia to make tangible political contributions to the political settlement of the crisis. According to reports, Beijing has so far refused to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine or call for a withdrawal of its troops, instead urging restraints by all parties and accusing NATO of fueling the conflict. Still to come in the news. PSG shortlists Michael Olise as Lionel Messi. Many thanks for staying with us. Welcome back. Impacted its top-line revenue negatively. It said this resulted in a 20.5% decline to 1.33 billion naira in the first quarter of 2023 from Q1 2022 revenue of 1.67 naira. This was disclosed in its unaudited result for the first quarter ended March 31st, 2023. According to the group, transaction fee, which accounted for 51.5% of revenue, dropped by 30.6% to 685.9 million naira due to reduced business activity. And still on business, the host communities of Nigeria producing oil and gas has said it is targeting a $5 billion fund in partnership with the private sector to kickstart investment drive and development in the oil-producing states in the country. The executive national chairman of the body, Dr. Mike Emo, spoke during its National Executive Committee meeting in Wari. According to Emo, while statutory financial allocations could come from the government for the development not only for managing such funds more efficiently, but also for utilizing financial resources from the private sector to augment partnerships that worked for the good of the parties. And more eulogized President Muhammadu Buhari for his administration's gestures towards the oil and gas producing state by signing the Petroleum Industry Bill into law, now Petroleum Industry Act. According to him, the payment of the 13% derivation fund was done in appreciation of the challenges faced by the locals in the oil and gas communities. In health, the World Health Organization, WHO, says the number of weekly reported deaths from COVID-19 is declining following the spike in China after its country lifted restrictions. World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, who stated these at the 15th meeting of the Emergency Committee on COVID-19 pandemic countries, and has increased the capacity of health systems to cope with potential resurgencies and the burden of post-COVID-19 conditions. In the meantime, the United States of America has become the first country to approve the respiratory syncytial virus RSV in the world. The senior U.S. Food and Drug Administration Peter Marks, who disclosed in a statement, said approval of the first RSV vaccine is a mild cold-like symptoms, stressing that most people recover a week or two, but RSV can be serious, especially for infants and older adults. Meanwhile, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports that RSV leads to approximately 60,000 to 120,000 hospitalizations and 6,000 to 10,000 deaths among adults 65 years in age and older. In sport, Paris Saint-Germain have reportedly started hunting for possible players as a replacement for Argentina's captain Lionel Messi, with Michael Olise among those listed. According to L'Equipe, the French champions are attempting to lure the Crystal Palace player away from the English Premier League, where he is emerged as this season's revelation. The potential move comes as Messi's future at PSG hangs in the balance after he was suspended for 2 weeks for an unauthorized promotional trip to Saudi Arabia. Among the options to replace the 2022 FIFA World Cup winner are Olise, Ryan Cherki, Bernardo Silva, and Moussa Dabi. However, Olise, signed by Crystal Palace for £8 million in July 2021, has developed into one of the best attackers in the Premier League, scoring 2 goals and providing 9 assists in 33 appearances this season. Olise is the youngest player to register at the least 9 Premier League assists since Trent Alexander-Arnold in 2018 and 2019. And his 9 assists are the 4th most in the Premier League this term. And still in sports, Napoli have won their first Serie A title in 33 years as they drew with Udinese at Dacia-inspired side, adding to their first title 3 years later. Victor Osimhen marched in at 52nd minute equalizer after Sandy Lovric had given Udinese a shock lead, and Napoli held on to the point they needed to win their 3rd Serie A title with 5 games to spare. And on our entertainment scene, Agada, the rising star of contemporary R&B, has released his latest single, Update. Updates is the latest addition to Agada's discography, which includes previous hits featuring top artists like Davido, Psycho YP, YC, and others. Also on entertainment, Nigerian actress Stephanie Okereke-Linus has returned with a new project following her last full-length feature in 2014 titled When Women Were Counted. The upcoming title is based on the story of the Aba Women's Riot in 1929. The project explores the lives of the brave women of that era who organized a massive revolt against the policies imposed by British colonial administrations in southeastern Nigeria. And that's all we have for you at this time. Don't sure to follow us on. I am Rachel David White. Good afternoon.